There is one thing that separates people who get destroyed by debt from people who build fortunes with it. And the strange part is, it has nothing to do with how much money they borrow. It is not the size of the loan. It is not even the interest rate. Two people can take out the exact same loan from the exact same bank at the exact same rate on the exact same day. 10 years later, one person is trapped making payments every month, while the other person owns businesses, real estate, and assets worth millions. Same debt, same money, completely different outcome. Because wealthy people understand something most people never learn. Debt itself is not dangerous. Using debt without a strategy is dangerous. A poor mindset sees debt as something to escape. A wealthy mindset sees debt as a tool. And in this video, I am going to show you 6 ways rich people use debt to create more wealth. Some of these strategies are used by billionaires. Others are things regular people can start understanding today. And the last one might be the most important because it changes the price of money for the rest of your life. So stay until the end, because once you understand this, you will never look at debt the same way again. Before we start, if you enjoy videos that explain how money actually works, subscribe to the channel, because here we don't talk about getting rich overnight. We break down the numbers, we analyze the strategies, and we explain the financial rules that most people were never taught. Let's get started. The first rule: the rich don't just use their money. Imagine 2 people. James has $50,000 saved. Michael also has $50,000 saved. James decides to buy a small property completely with cash. Michael uses his $50,000 as a down payment on a $250,000 property. 5 years later, both properties increase by 20%. James makes $10,000. Michael makes $50,000. Same market, same percentage increase, but Michael controlled a much larger asset. That is the power of leverage. The wealthy understand something simple. Your wealth is not only determined by how much money you own, it is determined by how much value you can control. And debt is one of the ways they do that. But the key is understanding one question: does the money you borrow create more value than the cost of borrowing it? That is the entire game. Mechanism number 1: trade credit, using other people's money before your own. One of the oldest wealth strategies in business is something called trade credit, and almost every successful company uses some version of it. Here is how it works. Imagine a man named Daniel wants to start selling office chairs. The traditional way would be, he uses his own money, he buys inventory, he waits, then he hopes customers buy. But successful businesses often operate differently. Daniel contacts a manufacturer. The manufacturer agrees to send him 1,000 chairs, but Daniel does not pay immediately. The agreement is, pay me in 60 days. The manufacturer has just given Daniel something extremely valuable, not just products, time. Daniel sells the chairs. Customers pay him. Then, before the 60 days are over, he pays the manufacturer. How much of his own money did he use? Almost nothing. He controlled thousands of dollars of inventory without tying up his own cash. The supplier became his bank. The inventory became his loan. And this is one of the biggest differences between average people and wealthy business owners. Average people ask, how much money do I have? Entrepreneurs ask, how much value can I control? The same idea appears everywhere. A restaurant takes customer deposits before an event. A contractor gets paid up front before buying materials. A company negotiates 90-day payment terms. The principle is always the same: get access to resources first, pay later. The less of your own money trapped inside a deal, the faster you can grow. Mechanism number 2: real estate, controlling millions with a fraction of the money. Now let's talk about the strategy most people associate with wealthy investors, real estate. But there's a huge misunderstanding why wealthy people love real estate. Most people think they buy houses because houses go up in value. That is only part of the story. The real advantage is leverage. Let me show you. Imagine someone named Sarah finds a property selling for $500,000. The property needs work. The kitchen is outdated, the floors are damaged. Most buyers walk away. But Sarah sees something different. She puts down 20%, that's $100,000. She borrows the remaining $400,000. Then, she spends another $50,000 renovating the property. So her total investment is $150,000 of her own money. After 6 months of improvements, the property looks completely different. The market value increases to $700,000. Now Sarah goes back to the bank. The bank looks at the new value and agrees to refinance the property. At 80% loan to value, the new loan is $660,000. She pays off the original mortgage, $400,000. That leaves $160,000. Sarah just pulled out more money than she originally invested. She recovered her entire $150,000 and still owns a $700,000 property. This is where most people misunderstand real estate. They think the goal is simply buy a house and wait, but many wealthy investors think differently. They think, how can I put my money into an asset, increase its value, recover my capital, and repeat the process? The goal is not just owning one property, the goal is building a machine. But there's an important warning. Leverage works both ways. A bad property with too much debt can destroy you. A good property with the right numbers can accelerate your wealth. The key question is always, does the asset produce enough income to cover the cost of the debt? Because debt doesn't create wealth by itself. Good assets create wealth. Debt simply gives you more control over those assets. By the way, if you're enjoying this breakdown, make sure to subscribe, because understanding money is not about memorizing financial terms. It's about learning how wealthy people think. Most people were taught to avoid all debt, but the real lesson is different. Avoid bad debt. Understand useful debt. Let's continue. Mechanism number 3. Buy, borrow, die. How billionaires use debt to avoid selling. Now we move into a strategy used by some of the wealthiest people in the world. And this is where many people become confused. They see billionaires with enormous fortunes, but surprisingly low taxable income. How is that possible? The answer is a strategy often called buy, borrow, die. It works in 3 simple steps. Step 1. Buy assets. Rich people buy assets that increase in value. Stocks, companies, real estate, ownership stakes. Let's say someone named Alex buys $10 million worth of company stock. Years later, that stock grows to $30 million. On paper, Alex gained $20 million. But here is the important part. He has not sold anything. The government generally taxes the gain when the asset is sold, not simply because the price increased. So Alex does something most people never consider. He does not sell. Step 2. Borrow against the assets. Alex still needs money. He wants to buy a house, travel, invest in another company, pay expenses. The average person might think, sell some stock. But selling creates a taxable event. So instead, Alex goes to a bank. He says, I own $30 million worth of assets. I want to borrow against them. The bank says, your assets can serve as collateral. Now, Alex receives cash without selling his investments. His assets keep growing. He gets access to money, and he delays taxes. This is the same reason wealthy people often prefer ownership over income. Income gets taxed immediately. Assets can continue growing. Step 3. Pass assets to the next generation. The final step is the most controversial. When someone wealthy passes away, their heirs may receive assets under rules that can reset the original purchase value for tax purposes. This can dramatically reduce the taxes that would have existed if the original owner sold during their lifetime. The result? A person can spend decades building assets, borrow against them, and potentially transfer them without ever selling. Now, before you think, can I do this tomorrow? Probably not. This strategy requires significant assets. Banks are not giving someone a massive credit line against a small investment account. But understanding this strategy teaches something important. The wealthy do not only ask, how much money do I have? They ask, how can my assets create opportunities without being sold? That is a completely different way of thinking. Mechanism number 4. Margin loans. The power and danger of leverage. Now there is another way wealthy investors use debt. It's called a margin loan. And this is where leverage becomes extremely powerful, but also extremely dangerous. Here's how it works. Imagine David has a stock portfolio worth $1 million. A brokerage firm allows him to borrow $400,000 using his investments as collateral. Now David has access to additional capital without selling his investments. He can use that money to buy more assets. If his investments rise, he can create much larger returns. But here's the problem. Leverage does not care whether you are right or wrong. It simply makes the result bigger. Imagine David's portfolio increases by 20%. His $1 million becomes $1.2 million. The broken money helped him control more assets. The upside was amplified. But now imagine the opposite. The market falls by 30%. His $1 million portfolio becomes $700,000. The bank sees that the value of the collateral has dropped. They may demand more money. They may ask David to add more assets, or they may sell his investments automatically. This is called a margin call, and this is where many investors get destroyed. The same tool that creates enormous wealth can also create enormous losses. That's why wealthy investors respect leverage. They don't use debt because they are fearless. They use it because they understand the numbers. Leverage is not a shortcut. It's a multiplier. It multiplies good decisions, and it multiplies bad decisions. Mechanism 5. The 0% interest arbitrage. Now let's move to something much more accessible, something many people can understand and potentially use. The idea is simple. Borrow money cheaply and use it strategically. Some credit cards offer introductory periods with 0% interest for 18 to 21 months. Most people see this and think, great, I can buy more things. But financially intelligent people ask a different question. How can I use this opportunity? Let's say someone has $10,000 of credit card debt with a 24% interest rate. At 24%, the debt keeps growing. The person is moving backward. But imagine they transfer that balance to a 0% offer. Maybe there's a 3% transfer fee. So instead of paying thousands in interest, they pay $300 up front. The difference is massive. They just changed the cost of their money. This is not a magic trick. It does not create wealth overnight, but it can prevent wealth destruction. Because avoiding a 24% loss is almost like earning a guaranteed 24% return. Mechanism 6. Your credit score, the price you pay for money. Now we arrive at the final strategy, and this one applies to almost everyone. Your credit score. Most people think a credit score is just a number on a screen. It's not. It's the price tag attached to your future borrowing. Imagine two people buying the same house, same price, same loan amount, but one person has excellent credit and the other has average credit.
The person with better credit gets a lower interest rate, maybe only 1 or 2% difference. That doesn't sound like much, but over decades, that small percentage difference can become tens of thousands of dollars. The wealthy understand something important. Money has a cost, and one of the biggest advantages you can create is lowering that cost. Rich people don't have access to a secret bank. They simply become better customers for banks. They build strong credit. They manage risk. They negotiate better terms. And because their money is cheaper, their opportunities become bigger.
How to apply this to your own life? So, let's put everything together. The wealthy use debt in 6 ways. Number 1, they use trade credit to access resources before paying. Number 2, they use real estate leverage to control larger assets. Number 3, they borrow against appreciating assets instead of selling them. Number 4, they use investment leverage carefully. Number 5, they reduce expensive debt with cheaper financing. Number 6, they improve their credit to lower the cost of money. But remember the main principle: debt is not automatically good. Debt is not automatically bad. Debt is simply a tool. A hammer can build a house. A hammer can also break something. The difference is the person using it. The biggest mistake people make with debt is asking the wrong question. They ask, how quickly can I get rid of this debt? But wealthy people ask, what can this debt help me build? Can it buy an asset? Can it increase cash flow? Can it create more value than it costs? That is the difference. The poor use debt to buy things that lose value. The wealthy use debt to buy things that create value. The poor borrow to consume. The wealthy borrow to produce. Same system, different strategy. And once you understand that, you stop seeing debt as only a burden. You start seeing it as a tool that must be handled carefully, because the goal is not to avoid all debt. The goal is to understand the difference between debt that controls you and debt that helps you grow. If this video changed the way you think about money, make sure to hit the like button and subscribe, because financial freedom starts with understanding the rules of the game. And in the next videos, we will continue breaking down the strategies, mistakes, and hidden systems that separate people who build wealth from people who spend their entire lives chasing it. See you in the next one.